The stars glittered coldly on the main screen of Earth's Defense Command Center. Admiral John Carter stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his gray eyes fixed on the approaching dots of light. These were not stars. They were ships. Alien ships. "How long until they reach our outer defense line?" he asked. Lieutenant Susan Miller looked up from her screen. 3 hours, sir. They're moving fast. Carter nodded. Just 6 months ago, the people of Earth had celebrated when the Galactic Council's ships first appeared in their sky. The aliens had seemed friendly. They talked about peace, shared technology, and welcomed humanity into their large family of space-traveling beings. The Council claimed to represent 32 different alien species, all living together in harmony. What a lie that turned out to be. "Get me the president," Carter said. The large screen flickered, and President William Davis appeared. He looked tired, with dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept much since they discovered the truth. "Mr. President, the Council fleet has entered the solar system. We have 3 hours before they reach Mars orbit." The President's face hardened. "Is Phoenix Protocol ready?" "Yes, sir. All nations are on board. The underground shelters are at 92% capacity. Our hidden fleet is in position." "Very well." The President paused, the weight of what was about to happen clear on his face. "You have authorization to proceed, Admiral. May God help us all." The screen went dark. Carter turned to the room full of officers, all watching him, waiting. For a moment, he thought of how strange this would have seemed just 1 year ago. Humans preparing to fight an alien invasion. Back then, their biggest worries had been climate change and regional conflicts. Now they faced extinction. "Send the signal," he ordered. "Activate Phoenix Protocol." All around Earth and throughout the solar system, hidden preparations sprang to life. 6 months ago, when Lisa Donovan from Military Intelligence discovered the Council's true plans, the nations of Earth had quietly begun to prepare. The Council's policy of peaceful assimilation was nothing more than a nice name for invasion, resource theft, and population control. Deep beneath the Nevada desert, in a facility known as Black Site Alpha, Dr. Alan Wright watched as his team made final adjustments to his life's work. The quantum displacement device was never meant to be a weapon. He had designed it to revolutionize transportation, but now it would be humanity's best hope. "Power level stable," said Olivia Ramirez, his chief assistant. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. "QDD is ready for deployment." Wright nodded. "Routing control to Defense Command." In space, aboard the massive flagship of the Council, Fleet High Marshal Zorn watched Earth grow larger on his view screen. The blue-green planet looked peaceful and vulnerable. His 4 eyes blinked one after another, a sign that he was pleased. "Such a beautiful world," he said to his second-in-command. "Rich in resources, perfect for mining, and the humans have done well preserving much of the natural environment." "What about the humans themselves?" asked his officer. Exorn made a dismissive gesture with one of his upper arms. "Standard procedure, reduce their numbers by 70%, keep the rest as a workforce. They're quite adaptable for primitives." "They did develop faster than expected," the officer noted. "Their technology has advanced rapidly in the last century." "Yes, but they're still centuries behind us. They have no effective space weapons, no faster-than-light travel. Their ships can barely reach their own moon." Sixorn's mouth parts clicked together in what passed for a smile among his species. "Begin preparations for the first wave of bombardment. Target their major military installations." Neither Zixorn nor anyone else in the Council fleet knew about the crashed scout ship that humans had discovered in the Arctic 30 years ago. While publicly, Earth's nations had continued their petty conflicts. Secretly, they had worked together to understand the alien technology. When the Council arrived 6 months ago, humans had already reversed-engineered many of their basic systems, and they knew exactly how to disrupt them. "Fleet is in position, High Marshal," reported the weapons officer. "Bombardment can begin in 5 minutes." Zixorn raised his arm to give the order. He never finished the gesture. Without warning, every system on the flagship flickered. Emergency lights flashed on as primary power failed. Across the entire Council fleet, The same thing happened as Earth's quantum displacement device activated, sending a carefully calibrated pulse through space that interacted with the alien ship's drive systems. "What's happening?" Disorn demanded as his bridge plunged into dim emergency lighting. "Unknown energy pulse. It's disrupting our core systems," his science officer shouted. "Weapons offline. Navigation offline." "Impossible. Their technology can't." "High Marshal. Multiple small craft approaching. They're launching from the moon and— Wait, from Mars too." On the viewing screen now, running on backup power, Sorn watched in disbelief as hundreds of small human ships appeared from hidden bases. How had the Council's scouts missed this? Where had these ships come from? What the Council didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for war for its entire existence. Unlike the peaceful Council species, humans had spent thousands of years fighting each other. They understood strategy, deception, and most importantly, they knew how to use an enemy's assumptions against them. Admiral Carter watched from the command center as the first wave of Earth ships approached the disabled alien fleet. "Remember, targeted strikes only," he said into the comm system. "Disable their engines first, then weapons. We want those ships intact." The human ships were smaller and technically less advanced than the alien vessels, but they had two crucial advantages. They were unaffected by the quantum displacement pulse, and they carried boarding teams. Captain Frank Morrison led one such team toward the flagship of the alien fleet. His squad of 30 men and women wore specially designed armor that protected them from both vacuum and the biological weapons the aliens might deploy. "Remember your training," he told his team as their ship docked with the massive alien vessel. "Non-lethal force when possible. We need prisoners for intelligence." Even as the space battle began, Earth itself was preparing for possible retaliation. Millions of people moved into the underground shelters that had been secretly built over the past 6 months. The Council representatives had actually helped design these facilities, thinking they were cultural exchange centers. They never suspected they were funding humanity's survival bunkers. Nancy Parker, Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, was not in a bunker. She was on her way to the Council's central world, carrying evidence of their planned invasion and a message from humanity. As her small, fast ship slipped into faster-than-light travel, technology Earth wasn't supposed to have, she reviewed her instructions one last time. The Council was about to learn a hard lesson. Never underestimate humans. Back in Earth orbit, the battle was turning into a rout. The alien ships, their systems slowly recovering from the QDD pulse, found themselves surrounded by human vessels that seemed to know exactly where to strike. "Sir," Susan Miller reported to Admiral Carter, "we've captured 3 Council ships intact, including a destroyer. 5 more are disabled and being boarded." Carter allowed himself a small smile. "And their flagship?" "Captain Morrison reports they've reached the bridge. High Marshal Zorn is in custody. The first phase of humanity's counterattack had succeeded, beyond their highest hopes. But this was just the beginning. The real battle would be political as well as military. Earth needed to secure its place in the galaxy, and to do that, they needed leverage. The captured Council ships would provide that leverage. The prisoners would provide intelligence, and Nancy Parker would deliver humanity's message to the stunned Galactic Council. Earth would not be conquered. Earth would not be peacefully assimilated. Earth was claiming its place among the stars, not as a subject world, but as an equal. Captain Frank Morrison moved carefully through the alien ship's strange corridors. The walls glowed with a soft blue light. The air smelled different here, like metal and something sweet. His squad of 20 soldiers followed close behind him, their special armor protecting them from any harmful gases the aliens might release. "Stay alert," he said quietly into his helmet mic. "Remember, we want prisoners, not bodies." Morrison's team had trained for months for this mission. They had studied the layouts of alien ships based on the crashed scout vessel found in the Arctic. But this ship, the Council flagship, was much bigger and more complex. A sound came from ahead, a sliding door opening. 3 tall aliens appeared, each with 4 arms and 4 eyes. They carried weapons and froze when they saw the humans. "Stand down," Morrison called out, using the translation device attached to his helmet. We don't want to harm you. The aliens didn't stand down. They raised their weapons. Morrison's team acted first. They fired their stun weapons. Technology reverse-engineered from the crashed ship. Blue energy pulses hit the aliens, who collapsed to the floor, unconscious, but alive. Secure them, Morrison ordered. Medical team, check their condition. As his team moved forward, Morrison received a message from Earth Command. Captain, this is Admiral Carter. What's your status? We've secured the main corridor on Deck 7, sir. Moving toward the bridge. Light resistance so far. Good. Remember, we need their navigation data intact, and the High Marshal is a priority target. Alive. Understood, sir. As Morrison's team pushed deeper into the alien vessel, similar scenes played out across the Council fleet. Human boarding parties captured ship after ship, their tactics surprising the aliens who had expected a primitive defense at best. On Earth, millions of people watched the battle through news feeds. They sat in underground shelters built beneath cities, mountains, and farmland. These shelters had been disguised as construction projects sponsored by the Council, supposedly cultural centers for future exchange programs. The aliens had unknowingly funded humanity's survival bunkers. President William Davis addressed the people from his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Citizens of Earth, today we face the greatest challenge in human history. The Galactic Council came to us with promises of peace and friendship. But we discovered their true intentions, to strip our world of resources and reduce our population to a manageable workforce. He paused, his face grim but determined. But they made one critical mistake. They judged us by their own standards. They saw our conflicts and divisions as weakness. They never understood that our history of struggle has prepared us for this moment. In Geneva, Switzerland, the last remaining Council diplomats were being detained. They had been living on Earth, supposedly helping humanity prepare for joining the galactic community. In reality, they had been gathering intelligence for the invasion. Ambassador Greg Wilson supervised their processing. Unlike most humans who had never seen aliens before first contact 6 months ago, Wilson and other top diplomats had known the truth for years. They had been part of the secret group, studying the crashed ship and preparing for possible contact. "You've made a terrible mistake," said Diplomat Krell, a tall, thin alien with pale blue skin. "The Council will send more ships, hundreds more." Wilson smiled calmly. "We're counting on it, but next time, we'll be negotiating from a position of strength." In orbit around Earth, the battle was turning decisively in humanity's favor. The Council ships, designed for overwhelming force against primitive opponents, were not prepared for an enemy who understood their technology and could temporarily disable it. Dr. Alan Wright watched from the Lunar Command Center as the quantum displacement device's effects began to wear off. The alien ships were regaining power, but too late. 15 of their largest vessels had already been captured intact, including the flagship. "It worked better than we hoped," he said to Olivia Ramirez, who stood beside him watching the tactical display. "We got lucky," she replied. "They clustered their ships too close together. The QDD affected more of their fleet than we calculated." Wright shook his head. "Not luck, arrogance. They didn't think they needed to be careful." On the Council flagship, now under human control, Captain Morrison and his team reached the bridge. High Marshal Zixhorn sat in what appeared to be the command chair, surrounded by human soldiers. The alien's 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. "This is impossible," Zixhorn said, his words translated by a device a soldier held. "Your species is at least 3 centuries behind us technologically." Morrison removed his helmet, wanting the alien to see his face. "Maybe in some ways, but we've had plenty of practice at warfare. Something your Council hasn't faced in a long time, I'm guessing." Sorn's mouth parts clicked together. "You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Council. This fleet was merely the first wave." "We're counting on there being a second wave," Morrison replied. "It will give us more ships to capture." Back on Earth, Dr. Julia Barnes led a team examining the 3 alien prisoners taken from the corridors of the flagship. Unlike the military personnel, her interest was scientific and medical. "Their physiology is fascinating," she told her assistant as she reviewed the scanner results. 4-chambered heart, triple-lobed brain, redundant respiratory system. They evolved on a high-gravity world with thin atmosphere, I'd guess. The aliens were waking up from the stun effects. One of them, who wore markings that suggested higher rank, spoke through the translation device. "I am Sub-Commander Vrel. Am I a prisoner of war?" "You are," Dr. Barnes replied. "But you'll be treated according to our laws on humane treatment. We're not barbarians, despite what your council might think." Vrel's 4 eyes focused on her. "You speak as if you know our plans." "We do," she said simply. "We intercepted communications between your advanced scouts months ago. We know all about your peaceful assimilation policy." The alien was silent for a moment. "Most species submit without resistance when they see our technological advantage. It is unusual to find such effective opposition." In Washington, D.C., in a secured underground room, intelligence officer Lisa Donovan briefed military leaders on what they had learned from the captured alien data systems. "The Council has been expanding this way for thousands of years," she explained, pointing to a holographic map showing a large section of the galaxy. "They identify promising planets, make peaceful contact, offer technological exchanges, then gradually take control." General Sam Foster studied the map. "How many species have they conquered this way?" 32 are official council members, but only 8 appear to have equal status. The rest are effectively servant species, providing resources and labor. "And they expected us to be number 33? Foster said grimly. "Yes. But here's something interesting." Donovan highlighted several planets on the map. "These worlds are showing signs of resistance. Small-scale rebellions mainly. Our actions here might inspire others." As Earth's first day of interstellar war drew to a close, Admiral Carter prepared to address the Joint Military Command. The initial phase had gone better than anyone dared hope. 28 council ships captured intact, 17 destroyed, when they attempted to fight back after recovering from the QDD pulse. The rest had retreated to the edge of the solar system, but this was just the beginning. "The Council will return in force," he told the assembled officers. "We've gained valuable ships and technology, but we need to move quickly to prepare for the next assault." He pointed to the display showing the captured flagship. "Our boarding teams have secured their navigation data. We now have maps of Council, space, the locations of their major worlds, and, most importantly, their communication protocols." A murmur went through the room. "That's right," Carter continued. "We can now send messages directly to other worlds in Council space. Ambassador Nancy Parker is already on her way to present our case to any who will listen." He looked around the room at the serious faces watching him. "Make no mistake. We've won the first battle, but the war is just beginning. The Council has resources we can barely imagine. What we have is human ingenuity and the element of surprise." Captain Morrison, freshly returned from his mission to capture the flagship, spoke up from his seat. "Sir, while on board, we discovered something else. The Council species aren't as united as they appear. There are signs of tension between the founding races and the newer members." Carter nodded slowly. "Then we'll use that. Earth may be outnumbered and outgunned, but if there's one thing humans excel at, it's finding an enemy's weakness and exploiting it." As night fell across Earth, people began to emerge from the shelters in areas deemed safe. They looked up at the stars with new eyes, knowing that humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe. It wasn't the peaceful welcome they had hoped for, but Earth had shown that humans would not go quietly into the night. The Galactic Council had wanted to find a primitive species they could easily control. Instead, they had awakened a planet of warriors who had spent their entire history preparing for this moment. 3 weeks after Earth's surprising victory against the invasion fleet, the Great Hall of the Galactic Council buzzed with angry voices. Representatives from all 32 member species had gathered for an emergency session that had now lasted for 5 straight days. The massive chamber, with its soaring crystal dome and tiered seating, had never seen such chaos in its 5,000-year history. Supreme Counselor Edrivex, a tall being with golden skin and 6 limbs, slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. The sound echoed through the hall, temporarily silencing the arguments. "Order," he demanded. "We must have order." The room quieted, but the tension remained thick in the air. Edrivex looked around at the assembled representatives, his three eyes narrowing. "The situation is clear," he said, his voice amplified by the chamber's acoustics. "These humans have attacked council ships, taken prisoners, and stolen our technology. There can be only one response. We must launch a full punitive fleet immediately." Many representatives nodded in agreement, but not all. Ambassador Lorith of the Tyrellian Confederation stood up. The small, gray-skinned being barely reached the height of most other species' children, but when she spoke, her voice commanded, "Attention. With respect, Supreme Counselor, perhaps we should consider why the humans responded with force in the first place." Murmurs spread through the chamber. "What do you mean?" Edrivex demanded. "Our initial reports indicated that humanity was offered standard peaceful integration," Lorith continued. "But the captured communications from the fleet tell a different story. They show plans for resource extraction and population control began before first contact was even made." The murmurs grew louder. Many of the newer council members exchanged troubled looks. "Those were contingency plans only," Edrivex insisted. "Were they?" asked Ambassador Krell of the Vostig Imperium, another newer member of the council. "The same contingency plans were used against my people 3 centuries ago. Half our population was relocated to work camps before we were granted full membership. For the first time in thousands of years, the Galactic Council was openly dividing, along ideological lines. The older founding species who controlled most of the Council's power were being challenged by newer members who had themselves once been peacefully integrated. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, unusual transmissions began, appearing on communication networks. Using the technology from captured council ships, humans had begun broadcasting directly to the citizens of various worlds. The messages were simple. Earth sought peaceful coexistence, but would not submit to domination. More importantly, the IKE broadcasts revealed the Council's plans for peaceful integration that weren't so peaceful after all. On Earth, preparations continued at a frantic pace. The quantum displacement device that had been so effective in the first battle was being replicated and modified. Engineers worked day and night to understand and improve the alien technology from the captured ships. President William Davis met with his advisors in the underground command center that had become the effective capital of Earth. "What's our status?" he asked Admiral Carter. "We've fully integrated the propulsion systems from 6 council ships into our own vessels," Carter reported. "We now have 15 ships capable of faster-than-light travel. Not enough for an offensive, but enough to begin establishing outposts beyond our solar system." "And defenses?" Dr. Alan Wright answered this question. "The QDD network is at 60% coverage around Earth and the inner planets. Once completed, we should be able to disable any approaching fleet long enough to mount a counterattack." Communications? Lisa Donovan, now promoted to Director of Interstellar Intelligence, pulled up a holographic display. "Our broadcasts have reached 27 council worlds. We're getting responses from 8 of them. Unofficial, of course, but promising. There are resistance movements on at least a dozen planets that have been under council control for generations." President nodded, taking it all in. "And our guests?" He was referring to the alien prisoners, particularly High Marshal Zorn, who were being held in a special facility beneath the Arizona desert. "Most are cooperating, to varying degrees," Donovan replied. "Particularly the lower-ranking crew members. Several have expressed surprise at how they've been treated. They expected to be executed or tortured." And Zorn? Still defiant, but he's starting to realize the Council isn't coming to rescue him anytime soon. On the other side of the planet, in a secure medical facility near Geneva, Dr. Julia Barnes continued her work with Sub-Commander Vrel. Unlike most of the other prisoners, Vrel had shown genuine curiosity about humans. "Your medical technology is surprisingly sophisticated," the alien noted as Barnes showed him the results of his latest health scan. "Different from ours, but effective." "We've had plenty of practice patching each other up," Barnes replied. "Centuries of war taught us a lot about saving lives." Vrel's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. A gesture Barnes had learned indicated thoughtfulness. Perhaps that is what we miscalculated. Your species' violent history was seen as a weakness to exploit. We never considered it might be a strength. Barnes looked at him curiously. If you don't mind me asking, how did your species join the council? Vrel was quiet for a moment. Much like Earth was meant to join. We were visited, offered technology and knowledge. Then came the resource demands, the population relocations. By the time we understood what was happening, resistance was impossible. Yet, you became part of their military. Individuals adapt to survive, Vrel said simply, but not all of us forgot. This pattern repeated across Earth as some alien prisoners began sharing valuable information. Not all did so willingly at first, but human intelligence officers found an unexpected advantage. Many council species had little experience with deception. They came from cultures where lying was either physically difficult or culturally taboo, making them vulnerable to human interrogation techniques that never even approached torture or cruelty. In orbit around Jupiter, in a hidden research station, built into one of its smaller moons, engineer Kyle Martinez made a critical discovery while studying the captured ship's communication systems. It's not just weapons technology, he explained to Admiral Carter during a secure video call. Their entire social structure is built on technological dependency. Every species that joins the Council becomes reliant on centralized systems. And, look at this. He showed the Admiral a strange piece of code hidden deep in the communication protocols. Backdoors? Carter asked, recognizing the pattern from his own military background. Exactly. Every piece of technology the Council shares with new species contains hidden access points. The dominant species can monitor everything, and if necessary, shut it all down remotely. Carter understood immediately. So if we distributed this information, we could offer genuine independence to dozens of subjugated worlds. Martinez finished. The implications were enormous. Earth had stumbled upon the Council's greatest secret, the technological means by which they maintained control over their supposed equals. Ambassador Nancy Parker, who had been traveling secretly through Council space in a ship using captured technology, received this information just before her first unofficial meeting with representatives from 7 dissident Council worlds. The meeting took place on a small moon orbiting a gas giant far from the usual patrol routes. The representatives had come at great personal risk, curious about the species that had successfully resisted Council integration. We've monitored your broadcasts, said the representative from Caloria, a world that had been under Council control for 5 centuries. Is it true you captured their ships intact? It is, Parker confirmed. And we've discovered something in their systems that you need to see. She transmitted the data about the hidden backdoors to their secure devices. The reaction was immediate: shock, anger, and then a dawning hope. If this is true, said the Voral representative, then freedom might actually be possible. Parker leaned forward. Earth has no interest in replacing the Council's dominance with our own. We propose a genuine alliance of equals, with truly shared technology and cultural exchange based on mutual respect. As the meeting continued deep into the night, the seeds of a new galactic order were being planted. Earth, the primitive world that was supposed to be easily conquered, was instead offering something the Council never had: real freedom. Back on Earth, in the Arizona facility holding High Marshal Zorn, a small breakthrough occurred. After weeks of isolation and regular visits from human negotiators, the alien commander finally asked a question that wasn't a threat or a demand. Why have you not executed me? He asked his human guard. It would be the logical action. The guard, Sergeant Paul Lewis, answered simply, because that's not who we want to be. We're fighting for our survival, not for revenge. Zorn's 4 eyes blinked slowly as he considered this strange concept. For the first time, he began to wonder if perhaps the Council had fundamentally misunderstood these humans. 6 months after Earth's surprising defense against the first invasion, the long-range sensors at Pluto Station picked up something alarming. a massive fleet of Council warships had appeared at the edge of the solar system. The operator on duty, Lieutenant Roy Wilson, immediately sent the alert to Earth Defense Command. "Sir, we have multiple contacts," Wilson reported to Admiral Carter. 400 ships at minimum, much larger than the first invasion force. Carter's face remained calm, but inside his heart beat faster. This was the moment they had been preparing for. "Are they advancing?" "No, sir. They're holding position just beyond Neptune's orbit. They appear to be waiting." Carter nodded. "They're being cautious this time." "Good. Get me the president." Within minutes, Earth's defense network activated. The quantum displacement devices, now positioned throughout the solar system, powered up and stood ready. The human fleet, now including 30 vessels with adapted alien technology, moved into defensive positions. Underground shelters around the planet began filling with civilians, but the expected attack didn't come. "Sir," Communications Officer Gary Peters called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. It's requesting a direct channel to Earth leadership." "Put it through," Carter ordered. The large screen at the front of the command center flickered to life. The face that appeared belonged to no species humans had ever seen before. The being had pale, almost translucent skin with faint patterns of light moving beneath the surface. Its eyes were large, multifaceted like an insect's, and glowed with an inner light. "I am Overlord Zenith of the Primarch Collective," the alien said, its voice translated by Earth's computers. "I speak for the founding council." President William Davis, who had arrived at the command center, stepped forward. "This is President Davis of Earth. We are prepared to defend ourselves." "That has been made abundantly clear," Zenith replied. "Your resistance was unexpected. In 50,000 years of Council history, no emerging species has ever captured our warships or broken our secure communications." The command center remained silent, waiting. "We propose a ceasefire and direct negotiations," Zenith continued. "Your representative, Nancy Parker, has presented terms to certain council members. While many find these terms excessive, we are prepared to discuss recognition of Earth as a sovereign territory." What the Supreme Overlord didn't reveal was the chaos spreading through the Council worlds. The information leaked from captured ships had sparked rebellions on 12 planets. 6 species had already declared independence from the Council, and more were considering it. After careful consideration, Earth agreed to negotiations. The meeting place would be a neutral space station positioned in the Kuiper Belt, newly constructed using both human and Council technology. As preparations for the summit began, Lisa Donovan briefed the president on the latest intelligence. "The Council is fracturing," she explained, showing a galactic map with color-coded systems. "The red areas represent worlds in open rebellion. The yellow are those secretly communicating with us about possible alliances." The president studied the map. Nearly a third of Council space was now marked in red or yellow. "What about the Primarchs?" he asked. "We've never even heard of them before." "They're the original founders of the Council," Donovan explained. "Based on prisoner interrogations, we believe they typically remain hidden, allowing their subject species to handle most interactions with newer members. So we forced them to reveal themselves," the president said thoughtfully. "That alone suggests we've significantly disrupted their normal operations." 2 weeks later, on the newly established neutral station Concordia, the historic summit began. The Earth delegation, led by President Davis and Ambassador Parker, faced representatives from all Council species, including several newly independent worlds. The Primarch representative, Overlord Zenith, began with a statement that stunned the human delegation. For 50,000 years, the Galactic Council has maintained order through controlled integration of developing species. This approach has prevented destructive wars and ensured stability. "At what cost?" Ambassador Parker interrupted. "Subjugation, resource theft, population control." Zenith's inner lights pulsed, possibly a sign of emotion. "Lesser sacrifices for greater stability. Your species was identified as potentially disruptive. Your history is filled with conflict." A history that prepared us for your invasion, President Davis said firmly. Yes, Zenith acknowledged. That was miscalculated. We saw your conflicts as weakness, not strength. Over the next 3 days, intense negotiations continued. Earth's position was strengthened by 2 factors: the captured ships and technology, which could be shared with rebelling worlds, and the growing alliance of independent planets inspired by Earth's resistance. In a private meeting between President Davis and Overlord Zenith, the true nature of the Council was finally revealed. The Primarchs evolved differently from most species, Zenith explained. We do not reproduce as you do. Our numbers have been declining for millennia. The Council structure was created to manage the galaxy in our absence. You're dying out, Davis realized. Yes, and yet we could not bring ourselves to truly share power with other species. We saw them, you, as lesser beings. On the final day of negotiations, Earth presented its terms, not just for humanity, but for all species in the galaxy. The time of the old council is over, President Davis declared to the assembled representatives. Earth proposes a new Galactic Federation, with equal representation for all member worlds, no hidden backdoors in shared technology, no population controls, no resource quotas. The room erupted in discussion. Some of the older council species objected strongly, but many others, especially those who had themselves suffered under the old system, voiced support. Ambassador Lorith of the Tyrellian Confederation stood. My world endured 3 centuries of peaceful integration before being granted full council membership. We support Earth's proposal. One by one, representatives from other worlds stood to voice their support. Even some of the older members, seeing the way the tide was turning, began to accept the inevitable change. Overlord Zenith spoke last. The Primarch Collective has guided galactic development for 50,000 years. Perhaps it is time for a new approach. We will consider Earth's proposal. 3 days later, the new Galactic Charter was signed. The old hierarchical system would be dismantled. All species would have equal representation, and the policy of peaceful integration was abolished. Admiral Carter watched the ceremony from the observation deck of the space station. Beside him stood Sub-Commander Vrel, now the official liaison between Earth and the Veltraxian people. Your species accomplished in 6 months what reformers have tried to achieve for centuries, Vrel commented. It is humbling. Carter shook his head. We just did what humans have always done, adapt and overcome. Back on Earth, schools began teaching children about their new place in the galaxy. The planet had transformed from an isolated world to a galactic power in less than a year. The last of the alien prisoners, including High Marshal Zorn, were released as part of the peace agreement. As his ship prepared to depart Earth orbit, Zorn requested a final meeting with President Davis. I came to this world to conquer it, the alien said. I leave humbled and educated. Davis smiled. Perhaps that's the beginning of true understanding between our peoples. In the newly established Diplomatic Corps Academy in Geneva, Instructor Ryan Nelson addressed the first class of human ambassadors who would represent Earth on distant worlds. Remember, he told them, our strength wasn't just in our weapons or our willingness to fight. It was in offering a different vision, showing that cooperation doesn't require submission. As the first civilian exchange ships prepared to depart for allied worlds, humanity looked to the stars not with fear of invasion, but with the confidence of a species that had proven itself. Earth's counterattack had indeed left the Galactic Council stunned, but its greatest victory wasn't won through force of arms. It was won by challenging an unjust system and offering a better way forward. In the end, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology or military might. It was hope. Hope for a galaxy where all species could truly live as equals. The end.